name is Heidi Beadnall and I'm affiliated with the University of Sydney. It's a bit of an unusual fact, I suppose, but about 2 lifetimes ago, I was a competitive swimmer. It was a long time ago now, and I actually for around 10 years had the same swimming coach as Kyle Chalmers. But yes, it's safe to say I don't think there'll be any comebacks anytime soon. I'm happy to watch Kyle Chalmers tear it up in the pool, I think. Well, what initially got me interested in MS actually was when I was training as a neurology trainee in Adelaide. It was a time when a lot of disease-modifying therapies were starting to come more available to patients. There was a real growth in the number of disease-modifying therapies available. And it was a very sort of exciting, growing area, as it continues to be. And that sort of inspired me to get involved in, have a particular interest, I suppose, in multiple sclerosis. And then I moved to Sydney to do the RPA MS and Neuroimaging Fellowship in 2013. And at that time, the mentors and things that I had at the time and that I still have encouraged me to get involved with MS research. So I think that's sort of the way that I became sort of really interested in MS research. And I think also a close family member had multiple sclerosis. And I think that always perhaps was a subconscious driver to being involved in sort of MS and also MS research as well. I think it's so hard to limit it just to one because I think there's been so much happening in the MS research space. But I think particularly the remyelinating drugs that are starting to sort of be looked at in clinical trials, and of course we hope that those will translate into clinical practice soon. But I think that they hold real promise because they won't just be beneficial to patients with relapsing MS, but also to those with progressive MS is the hope. And I think we certainly need therapies that can be applicable to patients with MS with all subtypes. So I think that's probably the most exciting, but I think that there's so much else going on. I have a particular interest in imaging, and I think the way that imaging technology in MS research is growing as well is also really exciting. So the current research project is looking at exploring quantitative MRI metrics, and by that I'm sort of talking about brain lesion volumes, brain lesion numbers, and also brain volumes themselves, being sort of whole brain volume, grey matter component of the volumes, etc. And this is sort of a particular interest of mine. And at the moment, these quantitative metrics aren't used in real-world clinical practice. And really, this project is looking at how we can use those quantitative measures in real-world practice. And I've been collaborating with some colleagues from the Sydney Neuroimaging Analysis Centre who have developed, using AI, basically automated algorithms that measure these things, and they can be applied to clinical scans. So the first part of this project is really to see how we can apply these automated algorithms to these clinical scans and how easy that is. Then how easily accessible this data that is derived can be put into the clinical workflow. We're really interested in looking at that. And then perhaps the most important component is how this data that is derived from these automated algorithms, once it's accessed, can actually influence clinical decision making, because that's really what is of interest to patients and of course the clinicians looking after them. But then in terms of why is this important? Well, if there is an influence of this data on clinical decision making, then that has the potential to improve the way that we treat and manage MS. So I think that is obviously very critical. So one of the things I really enjoy about being involved in clinical imaging translational research is that, particularly from a clinician background, is how the research and things that you're doing can really hopefully translate soon into the real world clinical practice setting, and sort of then how you can sort of see your work sort of maybe sort of change things in real life quite quickly. So that's what I really enjoy about working in translational research and in imaging research. Of course, there's challenges with lots of things, whether or not that be in the clinic or in research, but I think there's nothing sort of specific that is too troubling. So always just got to just jump through one hoop at a time and keep pushing forward.